Hi everyone, this is the weekly work for February 19th through the 22nd. You're going to be using this video to fill out your daily log. This week's objective: I can apply literary devices to analyze a text. Go ahead and pause here if you need more time. This week was vocabulary: dialogue, monologue, aside, dramatic irony, character foil, internal conflict, external conflict, and soliloquy. Pause here if you need more time. This week's assignments. Tuesday, you're going to turn in daily log and mini lesson notes. In class, we're going to work on pages 68 to 74 in our Casey book and start vocab list 3 due Friday. Wednesday, we're going to work on pages 75 to 86 in our Casey book, and again, you're going to work on vocab list 3. You don't have a video this Wednesday and Thursday. All you're going to be doing is vocab list. And then you're going to work on pages 87 to 93 in your Casey book on Thursday. Friday, you're going to turn in this daily log and your vocab list 3. And in class, we're going to work on pages 94 to 104 in your Casey book. Your homework for the weekend will be to watch a weekly video and fill out another daily log. Here are this week's assignments again. Go ahead and set yourself a goal for this week. Now we're going to take notes. These are your mini lesson notes. They're Understanding Literature, which is chapter 4. We've talked a lot about short stories and we've talked about novels. We haven't really talked about a drama. A drama is a play that we read. Dramas can come in many forms. It can come in a comedy, and what a comedy is a type of drama in which the characters experience reversals of fortune, usually for the better. In a comedy, things work out happily in the end. It can be romantic, or it can be satirical. A comedy is not necessarily funny. We are used to our modern definition of comedy being funny, but what a comedy is in drama, it just means that it has a positive ending. That their fortune works out for the better, that their luck turns good. That's the opposite of a tragedy. A tragedy is when there's a reversal of the fortune, usually for the worse. There's a catastrophe, there's some suffering. Romeo and Juliet was an example of this tragedy. So comedy, the fortune is good, it ends well. In a tragedy, it ends for the worse. In a drama or in a play, there's different ways that characters speak. There's dialogue, and this is lines spoken by a character to other characters. There's an aside, which is where a character makes a remark to the audience that other characters aren't going to be hearing. So, for instance, one example of this is when in modern television where we have a confessional, where a character is talking directly to the audience. An aside is more of a single remark as opposed to a full confession, but it's a similar idea. Monologue. Monologue is when you have a single character. Mono means one, so it's a single character speaking at one time. There can be other characters on stage, but the one character is speaking, and it's usually a longer poem, and it reveals something about that character. This is different than soliloquy. Solo is alone. This is a speech by a character when they are alone, when they're on stage with no other characters. This tells us a lot about what the character is thinking. This is kind of when you see a character speaking to themselves. This is a soliloquy. Other dramatic terms you might want to know. Character foil. This is a character who contrasts and parallels the main character in a play or story. So what this means is when you put two characters together and you put them together purposefully to show their differences. We might look at the person on the left and say he looks heroic and valiant, but he doesn't look as valiant as he does, or he wouldn't look as valiant as he does, except that he's next to someone who doesn't look heroic. And the man on the right isn't necessarily that short, but putting him next to, and kind of dopey, but putting him next to this character in armor and with the tall horse, he looks small and Like he's not very heroic. So you had to put them together to show their differences. You've seen a video about the bees. You saw the two magicians and the bees. One magician is really loud and the other one's really quiet. You wouldn't notice that except for when you put them together. There's different types of conflicts. There's internal and external conflicts. Internal conflicts is the individual versus themselves, and external conflict is the individual versus themselves, versus society, and versus nature. Here's some examples. Internal conflict is man versus themselves. Look, the person who sees themselves in the mirror, or how they see themselves in the mirror, how the person sees themselves in life. Think about Melinda. You know, she's dealing with something inside of her that's kind of eating her up. She has some pain, and we don't really know what it is, but she's got some internal conflict. External conflict might be Melinda, how she fights with her teachers, or she fights with her parents, or she fights with her friends. Here we have the two cats fighting each other, individual versus individual. Here you have a man standing in front of the tanks in Tiananmen Square. This is the individual versus society. And then on the right you have the house waiting, or in the wall, or in the path of the tornado. This is the individual versus nature. We're going to be working with these things all week. If you have any other questions, please write them at the bottom of your notes.